What is the true price of kindness? Most of us think being generous means giving away the things we no longer need, the clothes that don't fit, or the spare change in our pockets. But what if you had to give away the one thing keeping you alive? What if your sacrifice meant you might not survive the night? Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a man named Elias. He had lost everything: his home, his job, and his pride. All he had left was a single tattered coat. But one freezing evening, he gave it away to a total stranger. If you think you have nothing to offer the world, stay with me. This story is going to show you that the smallest person can carry the biggest heart. Elias lived in the city of Steel. It was a place where people moved fast, looked down at their phones, and never noticed the shadows in the doorways. Elias was one of those shadows. Years ago, Elias had been a teacher. He loved books, he loved helping kids, and he had a warm home. But a series of bad luck, an illness, a lost job, and the passing of his wife had left him on the streets. He wasn't bitter, though. He was just tired. It was mid-December, the kind of winter that feels like a physical weight. The wind whipped between the tall buildings like a knife. Elias's most prized possession was an old, heavy wool coat. It was faded, the buttons were missing, and the sleeves were frayed, but it was his shield. It was the only reason he was still breathing. That evening, Elias had found a small spot near a subway vent. The air coming up was slightly warm, and he huddled there, pulling his coat tight around his chin. He had a crust of bread for dinner, and he was ready to close his eyes and hope for a warmer tomorrow. Just as Elias was drifting off, he heard a sound that didn't belong in the city's roar. It wasn't a siren, and it wasn't a car. It was a soft, jagged sob. He opened his eyes. A few feet away, sitting on a cold metal bench, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. She was wearing a thin summer dress and a light cardigan that was soaked through by the freezing sleet. Her face was red, her lips were turning blue, and she was shaking so hard the bench was rattling. Elias looked around. Where were her parents? Where was the crowd? People walked past her, assuming she was with someone just out of sight, or perhaps they were just too busy to care. Elias felt a sharp pang in his chest. He knew that cold. He knew how it starts as a shiver and ends as a numbness that makes you want to sleep forever. He stood up, his old bones aching. He walked over to her. "Little one?" he asked softly. "Where is your mama?" The girl looked up, her eyes wide with terror. She explained through chattering teeth that she had gotten off the bus at the wrong stop and was lost. Her phone had died and she didn't know the way home. She had been sitting there for an hour and nobody had stopped. Elias looked at her thin cardigan, then he looked at his own coat. A voice inside him, the voice of survival, screamed, "Don't do it, Elias. If you give her your coat, you will freeze. You are old. Your body can't take this. Someone else will help her. Just sit back down." But then he looked at her small, trembling hands. He realized that for her, this wasn't just a cold night. It was the end of the world. Elias didn't hesitate a second longer. He reached for his buttons. He unpeeled the heavy wool from his shoulders. Immediately, the icy wind hit his thin shirt, making his skin crawl. It felt like 1,000 needles pricking his back. He wrapped the coat around the little girl. It was huge on her, swallowing her like a blanket. He tucked the collar around her ears and rubbed her arms to get the blood flowing. "Keep it tight, little one," he whispered. "The warmth is inside you. You just have to hold on to it." At that moment, a woman came running down the street, screaming a name. It was the girl's mother. She had been searching the blocks in a panic. She scooped the girl up, crying and thanking God. In the chaos of the reunion, she didn't even see Elias clearly. She saw a tall, thin man in a tattered shirt standing in the snow. but her focus was on her child. She hurried the girl toward a warm car. Elias watched them go. He sat back down on his piece of cardboard. The warm air from the vent was gone now. The fans had shut off for the night. Elias was shaking. His teeth were clattering so loudly he couldn't think. He tucked his arms into his chest, trying to catch any bit of heat. He felt a strange peace, even as his body began to go numb. He thought to himself, "At least she is warm. At least she is safe." He closed his eyes, prepared for the worst. But the story didn't end in the dark. A young man had been standing across the street, waiting for a taxi. He had seen the whole thing. He had seen the homeless man strip off his only protection to save a child. He had seen the mother drive away, and he had seen Elias sit back down in the snow, essentially waiting to die. The young man walked over. He didn't just give Elias a few dollars. He took off his own designer jacket and put it over Elias's shoulders. He helped him up and took him to a nearby 24-hour diner. He bought him a hot meal and sat with him until the sun came up. But it went further than that. The young man was a journalist. The next day, he wrote a story about the man with the wool coat. Within 48 hours, the story went viral. The mother of the little girl found Elias. She didn't just return the coat. She and her husband helped Elias find a place in a veterans housing program. They helped him get back on his feet. Elias didn't just get a new coat. He got his life back. Friends, this story isn't just about a coat. It's about the fact that you are never too poor to be kind. We often make excuses. We say, when I have more money, I'll give, or when I'm more successful, I'll help. But the world isn't changed by people who give from their extra. The world is changed by people who give from their enough. When you give when it hurts, you create a miracle. You show the world that humans are more than just selfish creatures trying to survive. You show that love is stronger than the cold. What is your last coat? Is it a few minutes of your time when you're busy? Is it a kind word when you're feeling grumpy? Is it a bit of forgiveness for someone who doesn't deserve it? Don't wait until you have everything to be a good person. Be the person who warms the world right now, exactly where you are, because you never know. The warmth you give away might be the very thing that saves your own life in the end. Keep your heart open. The world is cold, but you have the power to be the fire.